I want to say warm welcome to the roundtable Enriching IFSAM Soft Policy Statement with insights from the management research field in Brazil. My name is Silvia Svejanova. I'm Vice President of Research of IFSAM, and it is great pleasure to welcome the panel and the distinguished speakers on the panel, Professor José Antonio Pupim, member of the Economics, Business and Public Administration Committee at FAPESP and research professor at Fundação Getúlio Vargas ISP, Brazil. Welcome. Professor Mônica Cavalcanti Sada Abreu, former member of CAPES at CNPq Evaluation Committees, and also professor at Universidade Federal do Ceará, Brazil. Welcome to you, Mônica, as well, and thank you. Professor Eli Laureano Paiva, member of Program Evaluation Committees at CAPES, and also professor at Fundação Getúlio Vargas, EASP, Brazil. And last but not least, Professor Alqueta Pessi, Ampadi President and Professor at FGV EBAPI, Brazil. Welcome to you all. I also want to introduce Juliana Bonomi Santos, who is a professor and also Deputy Vice President at IFSAM, who will be co-chair of this panel. And thank you so much, Juliana. Maybe you want to say a few words to the participants who have joined us in the audience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's a pleasure to have all the panelists here and Silvia as our chair, but also all the attendees to join us in this very fruitful discussion that we will have today about research assessment in the context of Brazil. So I'm looking forward to the discussion, and also I will ask you to feel free to put your questions here on the chat, even while we are going on with the discussion, so that we can put the questions in when we have the opportunity. Thank you, Silvia.
Thank you so much, Juliana. Well, first I wanted to say thanks so much to Ampadi for having us as your pre-conference activity. You are heading to an exciting congress in a few days from now, and thanks for this opportunity and for this kind of occasion, Alqueta. I also want to give a little bit of background. So this panel was born on something that was created in the span of last 2 years, a research statement, a soft policy statement of IFSAM, of which Ampadi is a member, and Alqueta has taken also active participation along with others in developing this policy statement. One important aspect of this policy statement is, of course, the pluralism and contextual diversity of research, that we are different in our research context and we have different opportunities, different challenges. And this is a way to bring the research statement to Brazil and to learn with and from you, but also to hear your voice. What are the current concerns of Brazilian scholarship in terms of research quality, research assessment, doing better research, having impact, all these conversations that are shaping academic debates in these days. So what I would like to suggest is first, we will spend probably about an hour and a half together to get to know our panelists a little bit better. And what I would like to ask you is to briefly introduce yourselves, but also you are representing different institutions, different organizations, different practices related to research assessment, to give us a little bit of flavor of how exactly you are engaged with research assessment, project assessment, or research quality assessment in the context of Brazil. And I would like to start with José Antonio Pupim, and welcome, and if you can tell us a few words about your work at FAPESP and in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Svejanova. It's a pleasure to be here in this webinar. My name is José Pupim de Oliveira. I'm professor at Fundação Getúlio Vargas. I'm kind of between public and business management. And I also have another role as I'm a representative of management in FAPESP, That is the São Paulo Research Foundation that's completed 60 years of funding research in the state of São Paulo. Just to give you an idea, Brazil has the federal level funding agents, and they also have state funding. FAPESP is from São Paulo, the largest state of Brazil, with 50 million, and you invest around 200 million euros per year in research, different areas, and I represent economics and management, and it include business and public management, and you select quite a few number of projects per year to fund, also scholarships, all kinds of support to researchers in the state of São Paulo, both in academia, also in business. And that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. And I will now move to Professor Mônica Cavalcanti Sadabreu. And if you can also introduce yourself, but also the role you have played at CAPES and CNPq. Thank you. And if you can unmute, Mônica, sorry, yes,
Sorry.
now it's perfect. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Sylvia, thank you for invite me. And it's a pleasure to be here at this roundtable to discuss Brazil research quality programs and projects. I am a professor from Federal University of Ceará, Brazil. Ceará is located at the northeast of Brazil, 3 degrees below to the equator, so it's a hot city. And from 2018 to 2021, I have the experience of being part of the advisory committee of the business and economic areas of the National Council for Scientific and Technology Development, CNPq, which is linked to the Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation, and Communications, which is linked to the federal government. I also have participated ad hoc consultant at CAPES, CNPq, and FINEP. And currently in my state, I am a coordinator of the Chamber of Research in Applied Social Science at FUNCAP, which is the Ceará State Research Fund. We are a poor state in the northeast of Brazil, so we don't have too much resources like São Paulo. So to funding research in northeast of Brazil, we need to receive support from the federal government. And discussing the current environmental implication for management research and academic career is imperative. In 2009, the federal government invested 19 billion of reais in science and technology. A decade later, the resource invested in the strategic sector dropped to 17.2 billion in values adjusted for inflation. After reaching the highest historical importance in 2013, 27 billion of reais, the federal funds for science and technology have substantially reduced since 2015. The CNPq budget, which is a cornerstone for support for scientific research in the country, has been drastically reduced in the recent years. And in 2021, for example, this contingency reached 19. So what we see nowadays in Brazil is a serious setback because the current government declined and retention of a very important fund, the National Fund for Scientific and Technology Development. Even this block is prohibited by the government. It prevents the injections of around 2.7 billion of reais in this sector. So you can see that the current situation in Brazil, it is not easy to fund the project. But the scientific community in Brazil shifted to the FNDCD, And in this year, the CNPq expect to inject 1.3 billion of reais from FNDCD in Brazilian science in 2002 and 2003, which is a good news. It's a good news, and it is refresh our research situation.
Thank you so much, Monica, for this introduction. And now I would like to personally welcome Professor Eli Laureano Paiva and give you also the opportunity to tell us a bit about your work and your relation to assessment of research quality.
Okay, thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to participate in this panel. I'm professor also at FGV São Paulo, like Pupin. My area is supply chain management and operations management. I'm former associate dean of 2 graduate programs in Brazil in business administration, one in the University of Unicinos in the south of Brazil for 10 years, and also at FGV São Paulo for 10 years. I am former academic director of AMPAD, I think 5 years ago. And today I'm head of department in operations management at the FGV. I'm regional editor for Latin America of the journal Supply Chain Management, one of the main journals in our area. I've participated several times in different activities as ad hoc consultor on CAPES, NPK, and PAPESP as well. And this year, I participated as consultor in the for yearly evaluation of CAPES. At this time, at this round, we evaluate more than 150 programs. We analyzed the quality of the production, of the scientific production here in Brazil. The CAPES regulates all the academic programs here, the graduate programs. And a program ought to have endorsement by CAPES to keep their activities here in Brazil, and to receive a scholarship as well, and to start the activities of a graduate program needs this endorsement by CAPES. And CAPES has a maximum grade of the program is 7, and to start the activities, to keep the activities program needs to have a evaluation grade of 3. So I think this is the main information about me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that gives us an overview of how complex and diverse the landscape of research is, but also how many different assessments, accreditations, funding opportunities there are. And now I want to move on to Professor Alqueta Pesci, President of AMPAD, and give you the word also to introduce yourself and AMPAD and the activities you're involved.
Silvia. Thank you very much, Juliana, for hosting this panel. Well, I represent here the AMPAD, which is a civil society organization that agglomerates graduate programs in management, public management, accounting, and correlated fields in Brazil. Besides academic programs, we also agglomerate individual researchers. So we have thousands of researchers that participate in our 4 annual meetings. We have 11 academic divisions of areas such as organizational theory, human resources, supply chain management, public administration, among others. So we organize 3 individual divisional meetings, and we organize also a big annual meeting as the one that it's cooperating with IFSAM. I am also a professor of public administration and organizational theory at Fundação Getúlio Vargas Foundation, Brazilian School of Public and Business Administration, and a member of CIPA, which is the Committee of Experts in Public Administration of United Nations. So I will briefly talk about our work. I think my previous colleagues explained the complex governance and environmental and regulatory system that kind of, takes care of the impact and the quality of research in Brazil. Our association is a different kind of association. Our mission is to enhance the quality of education in management and correlated fields, and we play more like an advocacy role. So I think we'll have more time to explain the type of the roles that we play at the MPAD, but I mentioned our academic meetings. I would also like to mention that we host 2 academic journals, which are important in terms of the ranking of academic evaluations in Brazil. We also host a proficiency test, similar to GMAT or GRA internationally, which are kind of the opening door to graduate programs that they are used by most of our graduate programs to assess the quality of students in MSc or professional masters or PhD programs. So this is kind of something that I found untypical when you compare our role at AMPAD with our similar associations, scholarly associations worldwide. And we are developing different. We also have another system that measures the impact of our academic publications, which is called SPEL. So it plays a similar role to, to Clarivat, to Web of Science, Scopus, or Google Scholar within the national context. So AMPAD, along his history, has played an important role, to come up with different products that have the objective, to include, to have more inclusive view of the Brazilian contribution to the academic field of management. But I think that's good for now, and then we can talk more later. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Elketa. And now we can move a little bit more focused on your particular role, so the organizations and institutions you represent. And I will go back to Pupim, and I will ask, has the way FAPESP assess research quality changed in the recent years? Are there new approaches that you are working with? Of course, you have been into open science for quite a long time, but are there new ideas? Are there new approaches? And is this word of impact present when you decide how to allocate the resources to projects?
Thank you. First of all, I'm here in a personal mode, not representing FAPESP, and there's a lot of things I'm going to say that's actually my view, maybe not the view of FAPESP, just a disclaimer. First, it's important to know that in Brazil, the fields are in different, I would say, modes and stage. I would say, for example, I think it's for São Paulo, rest of Brazil, the hard science, they're always being connected to the world. There is no like physics that only happens in Brazil. And it's very international, being for quite a while, math, engineering, like we say more hard science, also the medical science, they're always being connected. And Brazil has a very high output in terms of impact in this area in academic journals, are being very international. And then you have different, I would say, assessments of different areas. I mean, the areas, as I said, more hard science, they're always being very focused on these, what happened in the world, contributions that have impact beyond the region. I said physics is not physics, it happen only in São Paulo or in Ceará. But what happened in social science is assessment, it was few years ago, very endogenic. I would say Brazilians would talk to each other, even more like people in the universities here, a high number of endogeneity. For example, people graduate, they say whole life in the same university, and then they hire their students and then stay. And the science was very endogenic. And there are studies that say that this actually reduce a lot the impact of research when you have this kind of endogeneity. And then in social science, mostly, it was seen last year, is moving towards more the other science. You see more internationalization, more impact beyond only talk to your colleagues, the people, your students, people you know, and you have seen these over time. The idea that you know, end homogeneity, improve internationalization of the research, be connected to networks beyond where you are, you know, world networks like IFSAM or the Academy of Management. Also, we have seen other trend that is interesting that, as I said, should be more applied more recently, should have impact in society, not develop theories that, as in your document, if some just talk to each other, develop theories without any real intention of have impact on practice. And this was said, came from the other science as well, you know, physics and engineering, but also came to management. They've been very applied field of research, but now more and more have to show impact or potential impact of research in society. And I'll go explain later how you are assessing these. Also, another trend you see is interdisciplinarity. Some, at least for FAPESP, they are a lot of incentives to you to project with other disciplines. You know, I do a lot of work in environmental management, you know, work with people in biology, people in medicine, and kind of have joint research projects that are more applied, more interdisciplinary, called transdisciplinary as well, you know, involve co-production of knowledge with actors that are working in the field, is exactly to have more chance to have more impact, involve companies or public sector people are working with in your research design and research implementation, and you have more chance later on, you're going to have more impacts of this research. What I see is that this is one trend. Another trend we see for FAPESP moving more also to investing in research outside academia, you know, with companies. You know, a lot of funds you have now is links between companies and academia, or companies funding co-funding the research in academia. And you have this as a trend. You have now some research lines for small companies, for large companies, for people working in agriculture, in other fields, and also how are you doing this now, and why? For example, what you did is just change the priorities. I said, you're forcing people to submit more projects, give more funding to this kind of projects, like people studying, moving towards this direction. Or now you kind of cannot just do some theoretical research. I need to be more applied. I have to find partners in the field, with other fields, other research areas, with people working practice and so on. And you change the procedure as well. You know, you have our CV, you know, resume that called Sumula. The Sumula you changed this year. Before was also 10 publications with highest impact. Now is the 5 contributions. Could be anything. Not necessarily be publication, could be publications, but could be, you know, you work with some government in São Paulo and change the policy for, you know, funding small companies, you know, research. And this could be now, instead of only publications, academics are asked to give 5, I would say, contributions they have given to society. Also, you have changed a lot the way you assess. A lot of this is more applied research, you call. We have more funding for that. You ask the evaluation to academic, but also ask evaluation from someone from practice, that someone could use the research. I just give you an example. The FAPESP and several 15 other state agents for research, you open a call for a project in the Amazon, and should be assessed both by academics, and you also have assessment by people from practice. You have a committee of practitioners. The people work in the Amazon, also Indians and other people live there. You assess whether this research is useful for them, and so on. And you go to have some weight in this evaluation. The project's not be assessed by, I would say, by academics or what are journals we're going to publish, but also by practice. But at the same time, this doesn't necessarily mean that you do not need to publish anything. You just do co-production. There's no, you need to do both. You need to show a clear contribution to advance the knowledge in the field of management and economics in our case, and at the same time also show how we expect this knowledge to impact society, and then you also say some targets, and you're using not only citations and H-index, but altimetrics and other, engagement of stakeholders and things that you could, in your proposal, say how you expect to assess the impact on society of your proposal. You have to put these in. It means exchange over time, still very traditional. I mean, if you say you're not going to publish anything in journal, you'll not get anything from professor. You still need to be more demanding. You still need to deliver on the academic side, on the big journals, but at the same time, consider all kinds of impacts. And last discussion, I would say, on that, for example, prioritize our journals compared to international journals. This is something I think you value accordingly. I think you have some journals in Brazil that are very well regarded by the assessment, while people know that these journals are much more local impact as well. But at the same time, look at other journals. I'll give you an example. Some of my most cited articles are from HAPE. Professor Alqueta is the, I think, editor still, and then HAPE is much higher impact in terms of citation than, JPART, Journal of Public Administration Research and Theory, that not many people maybe cite this. It means kind of a mix between the assessment, local people know a little bit what are the different aspects of research. You focus on kind of theory developing something more internationally, or working with people that would not be interested in publish only in Brazilian journal, and then you have to put certain targets and the research will be evaluated accordingly. If not, it's more practical, looking more at Brazilian context, and then we have a different kind of assessment, and the reviewers in general, they have these thing in mind when they have an assessment of the research. And maybe I could follow up, but I think because of time, go back to Sylvia.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. And you also opened several different avenues through which this kind of impact agenda trickles down, from collaboration through mixed assessments, through local journals or regional journals. And given that Monica mentioned you were involved in FUNCAP, and from what I understand, that's a similar kind of funding body. Do you see similar practices there? Or do you approach this agenda in somewhat different ways?
Thank you for these questions. FUNCAP it's completely different. It's a small agency, and receive funds only from the Ceará government, and we don't have a lot of call for projects. And what we have here, and it is kind of different, that we call the scientist chief, that the state government establish areas which is important, and for example, material science, and for water resources and environment, and so, and then they founding a professor, a researcher, and their research build a group of research, and they receive the amount of money to solve problems from the state, for example, water resources, water management. So it is a big issue here in the Ceará state, because we are at the northeast of Brazil. So it is, but the amount of money, it It is not, it's nothing like FAPESP. That's the reason that I always come back to CNPq, always come back to the federal agency. It is very important for funding the research in Brazil. And one of the main milestone in the policy of support and financial innovation in Brazil was the creation of the sectorial funds in 1999. And these funds are intended to reduce the instability of the resources for science, technology, innovation. As I told you before, that even the prohibited by law, the government block the contingency, these resources, and only this year, 2022, the CNPq get resources to funding the research. That's why nowadays in Brazil, there is a lot of call for project, and all of us are working hard in order to submit, because we spend 3 years without money for our research. And in the case of social science, applied social science, which is the administration, in 2020, the Minister of Science and Technology established ordinance concerning to the promotion of the research projects, and they established the research project technology development, and the federal government, the Ministry of Science and Technology, established the priority areas, which is strategic technology, enabled technology, production technology, technology for sustainable development, and technology for quality of life. What we see that basic science, humanities, and social science was not a priority. And because we are not a priority, the amount of money that we receive is less than the technology area. So it is one big issue when we discussing funding for research for social applied science in Brazil. And nowadays, we have a call for projects that they call pro-humanities. And it is something different from we have before, because nowadays the government, the federal government, starts to establish priority issues that they call line. So we have line impact for new technology of human activities, public policy for the human and social development, public policy for innovation and sustainable economic development, public policy of the promotion of the culture. So it's something new that's happening in Brazil, that the federal government established the line for research. In the past, it is free. They call for project, and then you can submit in any area that you want to research. Nowadays, Brazil federal government try to establish this call. And something important that the committee are focused on the merit, originality, and the relevance of the project, the priority experience of the coordinator in the area of research project, the contribution of the proposal for the advancement of scientific knowledge and the application of society, as well as the potential for impact, social, economic, scientific, environment, and culture, consistent in the adequacy between the training experience of the team from the project and the proposed objectives, activities, and goals, the adequacy of proposed methodology, the adequacy of the budget of the objectives, activities, and goals, and the adequacy of the deliveries expected products. And one one point is interesting is the scientific, non-scientific dissemination plans, how to disseminate this information to the non-academia community. And the main task from the CNPq commute, which I was part in order to choose the project which will be founded, is to establish the metrics to enable comparative evaluation of the proposal. And this process is quite complicated because we need to establish metrics, we need to follow the call for the project, and this process is far from the use of a journal ranking list as the arbiter of the research quality. It spends a lot of time and include a lot of research, not only the commit, but at least 2 research evaluate the project, and then the commit receive all this information and evaluate this process. So this is the simple overview what is happening in Brazil nowadays. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Monica. Sounds very complex to me, and lots of kind of interests, but also lots of new practices in terms of how you actually measure that and how you achieve agreement across different stakeholders. Just as Pupin was mentioning, how do practitioners with their own criteria kind of evaluate something that has also scientific merit, and how does that converge? I want to move now to Eli. And you have been involved on lots of panels. You said an extensive number of programs that have been consistently evaluated on their quality. And we would love to hear about how that happens, and has that changed in light of all these changing priorities from funders or from government priorities as well. Thank you.
So, like Popin said, it's my opinion, it's not CAP's opinion. So that's some information here about my my role as a ad hoc consultant, and I participate in several times in projects evaluation and program evaluation. So at this time, I think CAP's evaluation is changing for, I think, 3 main elements. One is this, graduate programs, it's important for them to have a strategic planning. That's the first element. And the second, and how they develop a self-evaluation process, and how they plan for improving the programs, improving themselves. And the third one, I think is the most important, is related to the quality of the research, and the impact of the research. So I think one challenge today is what impact means in our area. It's not clear so far. We are trying to identify some measures to evaluate what impact means for research, for the programs. One thing that changes related to this idea of a research impact is to evaluate differently the graduate programs. We don't follow anymore the one size fits all. We have more regional programs that are focused on some regional issues. Some of them are more national programs with impacting the whole country, and some programs is more focused on international research, international issues. So for this different proposal, we have different evaluations. And I think it's more close to the idea of certification. If you have a one plan, you will be able to relate to this plan, to this strategic plan of your program. I think some important issues related to consider the impact. Today, the programs have to inform CAPS about the projects, their publication, how, for example, dissertations and theses may influence companies and organizations' decisions, how this kind of projects developed by the program may influence the industry policies, some public policy as well. One example that I remember in this last round was a project related to food waste. And these projects have different programs participating in the project, different outputs, theses and dissertations, students' dissertations. For example, this project has an agreement with the São Paulo municipality to develop local policies. And also they have international projects with international other universities from other regions of the world. They got some grants from other countries as well. And finally, they got good publications, and local publications and international publications from students and from professors. Now CAPS also is evaluating the students' publication as a part of the assessment of the research, and also former students' affiliations, where they are going to have affiliation in other institutions and other universities. It's not only related to professors' publication. And the third element is related to the impact of the publication, the researches of the professors. And now CAPS also is combining some international index rankings to evaluate the quality of publication. We have the quality CAPS, that's our ranking, national ranking to evaluate the publication of the professors and the students. And one, the usual international index like GCR, but now you are using also national ranks like SPEL, mentioned by Alqueta, that's developed by IMPAT. So I think it's moving from traditional view of academic publication to the view of impact and a mix of measures to evaluate quality combined to impact of the programs. So that's the
Thank you so much,
current situation.
Yes, and also it influences, as you mentioned, the PhD students, a younger generation of scholars, and I think we can discuss further how we can take care of that young generation that is entering the profession and is facing such a complex set of demands and such a multifaceted set of demands while having to figure out what the research is about or how to become a scholar. And maybe that's a natural connection to Alqueta and you as leader of ANPAT. As you said, you have this more activist role, this voice as part of the debate. So how do you think this landscape is changing and what is ANPAT's agenda and ANPAT's role you envision in this transforming landscape of impact and more complex measures of what is quality?
Yeah, thank you, Silvia. It's a very intriguing question because I just to wrap up briefly the history of regulatory governance of higher education in Brazil. We went from a system up to the 80s with no regulation and no evaluation at all, but also with like 6 to 10 programs nationwide, academic programs. We experienced a boom, a huge increase in academic programs. Academic programs, I mean professional master, academic master, PhDs, etc. Through the 2019, 2000s was the boom. And of course, the regulation and evaluation become more professional. but basically it's a mix of self-regulation with governmental guidelines. So it's very hard, to kind of, see it as a pattern of high quality, because it's very hard, in terms of interest and conflicts of interest, to combine those views. So self-regulation. So basically, faculty members of our field that are responsible to do the evaluation under the governmental guidelines, and also suffering the pressure from physics, chemistry, management, sociology, psychology, all of that's bundled together. So it's a very complex and complicated system. So now we are in a crisis. Basically because the public and private resources that went in the system up to the 2000 and something now are gone. So the state has serious fiscal difficulties, and the private sector also. So I think now it's a period of test. It's a huge test. And what, of course, it's important to realize that, and there is a huge literature about that worldwide, not just in Brazil. We come from a situation where everything that matters is what is measured, which was basically publications. And then we experience the boom, for example, of Brazilian publications. We have more than 200 academic journals. As Pupin says, I mean, of course, there is a lot of, mimicking and etc. Brazil is a big country, but 200 academic journals is too much, even for a big country like Brazil. So it's hard to keep quality with these indicators of quantity. And this was a response, to the measures. So if publications is what matters, then everybody needs an outlet to publish, being international, national, local, regional, whatever, or being institutional. Programs opening their own. I mean, I'm vocal criticism to this system, because I think it hinders the quality of research and the quality of our education. So and not just myself, everybody here in the table knows the problems of the system. What are the risks today? The risk is that at the end of the day, what matters is still what's measured. So how do we measure the societal impact? It's still on the table. We know that the voice of regulatory institution has been toward societal impact, and we have very good academic programs with a huge local contribution that are almost unknown, are not recognized by the current system, but they have a huge local impact, or a regional impact, or a national impact, or international impact by itself. So I do hope that this change in terms of regulatory visions and policies will translate in recognizing more the local, regional, national, or international contribution of the Brazilian programs. But there's still, a huge gap to see if it's going to work, or if at the end of the day we'll make up a system of 1,000 indicators that you need to measure, and you create a bureaucracy and presidentialism, etc. And at the end of the day, a lot of public resources is going into the gaming the system, without a big impact on research quality, education, and societal impact. So, I mean, of course, it's very hard for AMPA to tackle the problems of the system, because we are just a small part of the bigger system of different kind of programs, etc. As my colleagues have already presented, but we're trying to, kind of innovate different products. So I'd like to give one example. We have a huge problem of equality in graduate programs in Brazil. So if you see our graduate students, they are basically white students, which doesn't reflect the demographic of Brazilian society. So we created a program at AMPAD, training in collaboration with an NGO that works with segments of society traditionally excluded, which are basically Black, Indigenous, white, women, and of course, I mean, we don't have a gender dimension, but it's basically race that we're focusing about. So we're training people to to get better grades at our proficiency test, and then hopefully to choose a better program, better graduate programs. we're still working on this. We are training actually 100 students, and we hope that it will result. But again, it's an inducive policy. It's something that we're not sure how it will work, if those students will be integrated within graduate programs. It's a long-term project, and but it's a it's also a symbolic signalization that we are kind of communicating with our graduate programs that are associated within AMPADS. We also have a project which is still very preliminary, which is called like the intelligence of the field. We're trying to gather data and evidence about the professional trajectory of our students. So it's kind of trying to answer based on evidence, not just based on what I think of. Where do our students come and where do they go after they finish their MSc and our PhD programs? We know by now that not all of them, particularly, will not be absorbed in academic programs. Because, as I said, there is a huge crisis at the moment. So we want, to open the ground for more PhD, different marketplace, like in the market, in the public sector, within the civil society organizations, etc. So in the last AMPAD, we promoted a big discussion. It attracted a huge contingency of students that are actually very worried about their future, so what's going to happen with us. And now we're trying to work on this still preliminary project, but we want to track, the professional trajectories to see where they go and to present evidence that can consistently base the policies about the future of our graduate students. We want to say, if the program is a national, local programs, they have no contribution in their region, in their work. So where do the people are working? What's the benefits of getting a professional master's program, and etc. And we're trying to work on, we have our own data because of our proficiency test. We have huge free available databases in Brazil that you can track the professional trajectories, and we're trying to connect those dots, which is hard, but we are hopeful at the end of of our work as the board at AMPAD will come up with at least a first preliminary assessment of our field. So those are two examples of something new that we're thinking about. I can't say that they're successful or not. We don't have the data yet for that, but at least they represent our discomfort, with the state of the art and our attempt, to advance in a more evidence-based criteria for policy decision. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Alketa. And I do think we go back to the importance of taking care of the younger generations. And I think the two examples you provided are both more inclusive entry into this opportunity of a researcher career, but also thinking about what the future entails, especially if resources are scarce or the expectations are much wider or much more different when they have joined this profession. I want to join Juliana in encouraging the audience. We can see that you are out there. We very much hope that you can bring questions, but also comments or share experiences through the Q&A section of this Zoom connection. And I will also want to see if Juliana wants to either comment or ask something as part of the system, but also as an active contributor to the scientific field. And now the word over to you, Juliana.
Thank you, Silvia. Indeed, I do have a question, which I think relates to what the panelists have said, but also to something I heard this morning in the other roundtable. So what we can see is that impact is being pushed from a more institutional level, from the accreditation bodies, from funding bodies, and so on. But while we would expect this to have some sort of influence on universities and how they assess academics, but also how they devise their strategies to promote impact. So I would like to ask, all of you or some of you who feel comfortable in answering, how do you think this pressure, this institutional pressure that you have described will influence business schools? And how long do you think this will take? I mean, how, because as a researcher, I still feel very much pressured for publication itself. So.
Thank you, Juliana, and I open to any of you who would like to share your thoughts on these developments.
Well, I can start. No, I think there is a structural problem in teaching and research in Brazil. You are very much supply side. You don't have much signals from demand, particularly because many of the research universities are public universities, fully funded. The students, they don't pay to enroll. And what happens is sometimes is you don't have the signal, and then the system just put research money and people publish research without actually have any demand for this research from academia, practitioners, students, to value the research as something that they could use in their teaching. And I think this is a structural problem, because you don't have like other kind of demand and supply. There is, when you see signals like the demand going down, and then you kind of move to where the demand is. And I think you need more signal from demand. What you see with all this project with companies is exactly this, to ask companies or governments in São Paulo state, for example. You got like a large project here with the Secretaria de Segurança Security Ministry of São Paulo. They co-funded a Center for Research Security in São Paulo. And you have also with companies like IBM has with University of São Paulo, like a center of, I think, artificial intelligence. They are co-funding. You have Embraer co-funding one with the Institute of Technological, and FAPESC put some money, the university put some money, and the company put some money. And you see there is a demand, because if the company or the government is kind of also put money, and then they're expecting you to produce something that's useful, or they want the product from that. And what I see is a lot of things you need to have more the demand side. You don't have this much in the Brazilian academia, including management. You see more number of students enroll, and less on how our research is demanded by students and others to actually direct our effort where the demand is. And not where the supply is, because we pretty much supply. And for PESP, I see this direction, moving more towards to signal from the demand, not only that, just more, I would say, what's called non-applied science. You need maybe supply, but applied side, I think we need much more the signal for the demand and work with people that we're going to use our research, and I see these as a trend, at least. Sometimes it's difficult in Brazil to do this exactly because there's not much signal from, Alqueta said, for example, at least Eli and I think Monica also, graduate program is free, and then the students sometimes enjoy it because it's free, they don't pay anything. And then they just join because they don't have a job, and I think we need more the supply side, not the demand side, to give signals. Exactly, I enjoy the program if I see some benefit on these, because sometimes it's a kind of putting also some resources to invest some resources, as you see in other parts of the world.
Thanks a lot, Pupim. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, Juliana, I don't know. I think as long as everything that matters is what measures, we have the risk, and publications are the easy thing to measure. So comparing to the other metrics, we still face the risk, that everything will be reduced to that. There are advantages of having a hard measure like publications. Okay, so I cannot also say that I feel that this is something that we need to abandon. I'm not I do not support this view, because I mean, it pressures our researchers, you know, to collaborate, to establish a dialogue with international peers, with national peers, with the private sector, with the public sectors, etc. And when the product is good, I mean, it's publishable, always it is. So it's kind of strange that everybody here working with management, public administration, etc., doesn't feel like a part of an applied science. I mean, for me, everything that we do is basically applied. It's not pure theory. So the bridges of collaboration probably it wasn't. It's not supposed to be so hard, you know, to establish. It would be more natural. Still, they are, and I do think that part of this problem, it's because of the academia. It's because of how we position ourselves, how we demarcate our field. Sometimes, you know, being very careful about this is our piece of earth, and being afraid of others scrutinizing our research. And by others, I mean also, of course, society scrutinizing our research in many forms. But I do think that the pressure is there. And forms of scrutiny will be there because, as I said, the resources are scarce. So, and nobody's willing, you know, to give more money to academia if you don't, you know, defend yourself and you don't say that you are worth it. What you do has big societal contribution. So I do think something will change. We've seen the first attempt from CAPS, and this is our first attempt to change the evaluation. Dutch university do it for a long time, and it looks like they are having good results, even if reimagining, you know, forms of research assessments, etc. And I do think that we'll follow a similar path in the future.
I just need to compliment what she said. I think it's a good move from CAPES, because what you see, you have many programs in Brazil, very different. The country is very diverse. And sometimes to have a very high rank in CAPES, you need to publish, I don't know, a kind of management review. And a small university in the middle of Ceará, you know, they put all their resources to publish one paper and it is a very supply side, because the money, if you want to get money from CAPES, you need to publish in a kind of a management review, and you put all the resources to one paper that later on have no use finesse in local context, instead of using this money to, you know, have more local impact, you know, give scholarship to students or fund like more applied research than actually publish in the top journals. And I think this diversity now can be captured by the change you have in CAPES. The only problem is the CAPES, they cannot publish the results, but this will be a good move. You know, it's kind of actually admit there are different contexts in the country, and not everyone should publish in top journal. Because this to drive all the resources there. Yeah, and you could see more the demand. What is the demand side from the locality that you could spread your resources more according to the demand, not from what comes from the top. You come all this from supply from the top that don't give you signals for demand side in where you are located to drive your resources in the direction where the demand is.
Answering again Juliana's questions about the programs, I think some programs like ours is trying to move also not only for academic evaluation, but some kind of impact, because now you are evaluating, for example, how much one research can get fundings from companies or from agencies, like a part of the evaluation, the regular evaluation. At the same time, CAPES, I think there's another challenge, that's how to differentiate the professional or executive programs with the academic programs. So today, it's almost the same criteria. and they have to publish in academic journals, but the proposals are completely different. So the professional is more related to the market jobs and to qualified executives, and the one to qualify new researchers and new professors for the academic jobs. So today they have almost the same criterion, and that's a challenge, current challenge, to try to identify different measures for different proposals. So maybe in the executive program, we need to evaluate more things related to how to connect companies, how develop research with companies and civil societies, other organizations, and the academic ones more related to not only impact, but also the quality of the publication.
Thank you so much. Monica, would you like to add something to that perspective?
Thank you. I think that the central point that our research and development system remain at risk and unfunded. It is not possible to develop scientific research without fundings, and it is moving the universities, and in order to find another others partnership, as Pupin told, partnership with the state government, with the companies, and partnership with others university, and it is try to build a network. And I think that in these 2 years from COVID, it is very interesting how we get close, how we improve our network, and it is very important for the research. And in this situation, we develop more research. We are more concerned about the impact, not only the impact to publish in the top journal, which is very difficult for us, for Brazilian people, because we don't speak English, and because we need to prove that to attract the attentions of the international public for conditions that has happened here in Brazil. So there is a lot of issues that we need to deal. And I think 2 points: it's try to expand our impact, not only mainly social and economic impact. Try to highlight the contribution of the social science, and to understand and tackling social grand challenges, and also try to reinforce a systemic view, and try to reinforce the role of the science, the role of the universities, and the role of the research institutions and the founding like CNPq, and try to reinforce. I think that what we need here in Brazil nowadays is to reinforce the R&D technology system, R&D system, including all this partnership, in order to discuss the way we can founding our research, and the way we evaluate our research, and what's the main impacts of our research. This is the main task, and try to connect with each other in order to tackling something important for the country and relevant for the social appliance.
On this point of connecting with each other, I think I have to include the IFSAM family here. So you talk about, of course, important challenges in terms of funding, important transitions or developments. how can we collaborate better across? I mean, what can we learn from each other, but also how can we work better together from our respective different ecosystems or national systems in order to, on the one hand, ensure better chances for social sciences of having voice in these debates on grand challenges and contribution to these debates, but also making this visible international, making Brazilian research better appreciated and known internationally. And I maybe will direct it first to Alqueta, who was part of that group that initiated the webinars a couple of years ago and began this conversation. What can we do together, actually?
I think that the policy statement that IFSAM built it with stimulating this collaborative international collaboration was the first very good product that I do think will impact, the national scholarly associations that are part of the IFSAM and beyond that will become part of the IFSAM. I think in this space we had the unique opportunity to collectively rethink, research impact, rethink contextual flavors and pressures, and build a different type of document than the ones, that were imposing upon any type of scholarly association. So this is probably the first type of contribution that I do think it's a soft policy, of course, but I think as our national association, we work with soft policy. So this is so in terms of good practices, advocating good practices, etc., changing the shape. Another advantage that I do think that IFSAM potentializes is that the fact that Brazilian Academy has always counted with international participation. We have Professor Shalai here. We got the prize from AMPA. That has been always a collaborator with the Brazilian Academy of Management. However, collaborating through IFSAM is different, and also, having those courses after the pandemic, the online collaboration, etc. So this is unique. This is a new ground that we can build a different kind of collaboration. So today in our Academy of Management meetings, we'll have more than 50 international participants. Many of them came, from the IFSAM collaborations. So we're trying to connect those dots, inviting the president of African Academy of Management to work with Brazilian researchers that focus on issues of decolonialization, sustainability, etc., as an example. So going beyond, north-south relationships and expanding those south-south relationships, it's also possible due to IFSAM mediation. So those are two examples that come into my mind. I do think that having the space will be a great opportunity to come up with other ideas and solutions along in the future.
Thanks so much, Alqueta. And I don't know if our other panelists have any ideas of what can we do more of or less of or differently to enhance this dialogue or to make this dialogue richer in terms of these kind of contextual factors or the specific issues of concern in the context of Brazilian research.
I will start. I think you can contribute in several ways to, these get close together between different academy of management. I would say one thing that you could do is collaborative ways of assessing research, how you could develop what you're doing actually with soft policy. But in having the different, I would say, organizations that part of IFSAM adopting some common guidelines that could, create, I would say, isomorphism in the system, but in two directions, not only kind of, you call critical management colonization. Don't never say this, but it's because the flow is much faster. Brazil just produced 2% or less 2% of the management research in the world. Obviously, the other 98%, we have much stronger force to come here than our 2% going out. But I think if you have a kind of isomorphism to see these different perspectives, could start having more channels to collaborate, because the rules will be the same, how we evaluate. Because if you in Denmark, you are in CBS, you have a different evaluation than in Brazil. When you do research together, you plan different things because you'll be but you have the same rule, and then you kind of having, and then I think this could be one perspective. And the advantage of Brazil has two. One is could be good and bad. One, I was teaching a first year paper for the students here. And one problem we have with the students here, they're always object oriented. They start, I studying these housing program in Fortaleza and not start theoretically. They're difficult to then go out from the object, think in theory first, and then come to the object. But you are very applied. Our research, I think our traditional research and management is very applied. You go directly to the object and you try to solve the problem in the object before you try to theorize. And I think this is if you apply research, you have to go in this direction. The other thing is because of the size of the country, and I say more public administration also in this area, you are very diverse. You have 5,570 municipalities with 5,570 system of education, health, security, and then it's very diverse to study, how management changes. I was in a local, the mayor conference in Singapore in beginning 2000, and they elected the 5 local government innovations best in the 20th century, and 2 were from Brazil. One for participatory budgeting, other was the BRT from Curitiba in the bus rapid system. Among the whole globe in the last 5, and there are 1 million local governments in the world, and 5 and 2 are from Brazil. I mean, Brazil, there are a lot of things in management to be studied, to be better understood, and also contribute to practice in other countries, but also to theorize and see how it happened. And I see this advantage you have, where you are. It's good, I think, object for study. Also the approach you have, also this object-oriented, I think is a tradition here. It's difficult to get the students out of this, but it could be an advantage now when you're trying to have more impactful research.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Monica.
If I can complement the idea of Pupin, I think that we need to move from the deductive research to more inductive and abductive research. And in this abductive research, Brazil has an institutional environment that it's very particular. So it is, I think that we can develop research. Well, I think that we have an opportunity for develop research on negotiation, on consensus seeking behavior, on redirected narratives. And it is something that is particular in Brazil. And when we talk about Brazil, it's different Brazils. In each regions, we have some kind of particularities. And I think the main point is that we, as a social applied science, that we need to take the grand challenges. And when we do this, it is not possible to do alone. It is necessary to talk with the technology. It is necessary to talk with the scientific basis, and it is necessary to improve our research ecosystem and try to say that it's not only technology that will solve the grand challenge. It is necessary to have a management perspective. It's necessary to develop a new different business model, and it's necessary to develop different pedagogical initiatives that focus on lifelong learning, focus on social learning. And I think that if we change our mind as a social applied scientist, it is much better to collaborate and to establish a cross-sector partnership, focus on giving a real impact on this, on the to the society, to the society. And I think that there's a lot of space to develop this kind of abductive research, and that's the point.
Thank you so much, Monica. Great ideas. And I can see Eli is also
Yes.
ready to chip in the discussion. Thank you, Eli.
I am in the board of two associations, one in India, an academic association, and the other one is in Africa, Supply Chain Association, also for research development in Africa. And sometimes when I participate in the meetings, I think we have some common problems, some the same or similar constraints compared to them. One of them, I think, been mentioned before, that our discussion about our theoretical contribution of the dissertations, of the theses of our students. Another one is more related to methodological issues, how to improve the quality of our research or methodological procedures. And in these two associations, they have some actions related to new possibilities for the students. So they have symposiums, they have some invitations for international professors to improve the quality of the research. So I think that's one issue that we can develop among the associations, international associations, this kind of collaboration. And also thinking about the topics. I think Brazil has some topics that are very important when we're talking a global level. When I'm participating with these researchers from other regions, the topics relate to agriculture. That's a challenge for Brazil. It is important for our Brazilian economy. And things relate to sustainability. The same challenge relate to equity. So we have the common issues, common topics that can be very rich to collaborate in international associations.
Thank you so much. I think these are lots of great ideas in terms of what can we do more of and better of in terms of enhancing both the conversation on topics that have relevance for all of us, but also actually collaborating as you were mentioning on how we understand impact, or how we measure impact, or how can we embark on shared projects. We are moving in the last 5 minutes of this panel, and there have been lots of wonderful ideas. I have a cautionary question, and I was listening to the presentations, and of course there is a lot of collaboration with companies, a lot of businesses coming into the university, defining agendas, giving resources, funding. Are there any dangers for the independence of research and researchers? And how can we, in this willingness to collaborate and to solve problems, preserve our critical and reflective perspective, and not lose actually the ethos of academia, which is to ask the big questions, to challenge received ways of looking, and to open up new spaces for debate and discussion. And I guess this will be the last question I would like to briefly pose to all of you as a food for thought and further discussion. And whoever else is kind of willing to jump on it, the floor is yours.
No, I start at the moment.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Tupi.
Monica, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't think that we are in risk to change our independence. I think that we will, if we enhance this cross-sector partnership, we will increase our knowledge, and we, as a kind of social learning, as we interact with each other, as we interact with people with different perspective, government with a public policy, the company with the practical and the short-term problems to solve, and we can give to them our mind, our idea, our long-term perspective, our deep theoretical basis, and I think that we can tackling the grand challenges, and we can contribute more, and then in these directions we can really get an impact. And of course our research need to be published, because it need to be shared, the knowledge. That's the main point.
Thank you, Monica and Pupi.
No, yeah, always there is a risk, because you're not used, but areas like pharmaceutical, the people who work pharmacy, medicine, they are used to this. They get a lot of money from big pharmaceutical companies. And when you see a research funded by, I would say, Pfizer, is different when you read the research not funded for, the Danish funding agents. And what they do, they put disclaimer, like this research was funded by whatever, Monsanto or Exxon, and then that where it's coming. Other way to do this shield, you can shield it. For example, agree in the research question. I've done this with companies who they don't want that research question, and then I have to make an agreement. Maybe later I publish with the other research, but I have like one common research question. And other way is to shield the funding. And Brazil don't have much experience because of law. You just passed a law for endowment in 2019. Endowment, like you have a contract, a long-term contract with funding agents that go to the endowment. I mean, once it's there, they cannot remove. And then it kind of more independence to maneuver in the use of the funding. And then there are ways you can actually, not avoid, because I think some people avoid it. I don't want any funding, and you have to depend on certain, even government could have bias. And then, I mean, there is way you can acknowledge and also try to reduce the interference of the funding in the research of your research. And I think other countries, they have more tradition on that than us. We could learn a lot, for example, for the US or Europe.
We are moving in the final minute, and I just want to say I'm so grateful for this conversation, for your time and generosity to share both the complexities and challenges, but also all the wonderful work you're doing as you try to open social sciences for more people, for better work, for better connectedness. I do very much hope that we will continue this conversation and this close connection between AMPAD and IFSAM, between Brazilian researchers and those around the globe, and look very much forward to further occasions. Muito obrigada por participação. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana. Bye bye.
Thank you very
All the
much.
best. Thank you also to
Bye-bye.
the audience for being with us. Thanks a lot.